The room was dark except for the faint glow of a phone screen, and David's hands trembled as he scrolled through Reddit, his breath quickening as he read words that shattered him. David whispered, "This cannot be real." His chest tightened as the words lingered in his mind. "I know what happened to your sister." The ringing in his ears grew louder, drowning out the silence. Memories of a locked bedroom door flashed in his mind, and his throat felt dry, as if swallowing could not clear the weight pressing down. His eyes darted around the room, shadows stretching across the walls like silent witnesses. He gasped, "No one knows this. No one ever could." The glow of the phone illuminated his face, pale with horror, and the sound of his heartbeat thundered inside his skull. Family photos flashed in his memory, his sister's smile haunting him with unbearable clarity. A voicemail never opened clawed at his thoughts like a wound. David's lips trembled as he said, "How could they know?" The screen blurred with tears, yet the words remained sharp, a blade cutting through every layer of denial. This was no casual message. This was a grenade detonated in his world, and the fragments were burying themselves deep. David sat motionless on the edge of his bed, clutching his phone as if it were a weapon against invisible enemies. His mind reeled, searching for explanations, yet none emerged. He whispered, "No one could know this except her, and she's gone." His heartbeat thundered in his chest, each thump shaking him more. The quiet of the room pressed in like a suffocating blanket. David glanced at the clock, its neon digits mocking him with the time. 2:17 a.m., as if the world outside slept while his was crumbling. He clenched his jaw, muttering, "Someone's playing with me. They have to be." But deep inside, fear rooted itself, whispering that this was no prank. His chest rose and fell sharply, air struggling to steady. His eyes darted again to the screen, the words etched into his vision. He rubbed his forehead with his free hand, sweat dampening his skin. He whispered to himself, "What if this is real?" The thought clawed deeper into him, leaving him paralyzed in dread. David tried to steady his hands, scrolling back to check the username that left the message. But it was as if the comment appeared from nowhere. The account name was a string of random numbers, faceless and cold. He muttered, "Anonymous, of course." His breath quickened as he tapped into the profile, only to find nothing. No history, no posts, just a hollow digital shell. David whispered, "Why would someone make this?" His throat tightened as fear and anger tangled inside him. The glow of the screen blurred as tears welled up, his chest burning. Shadows stretched longer across the walls, as if listening, mocking his silence. He rubbed his temples and whispered again, "This isn't real. It can't be real." Yet the weight of the comment anchored itself deep inside, undeniable and suffocating. David pushed himself up from the bed and paced across the room, his bare feet pressing against the cold floor. His voice shook as he muttered, "I buried this. I buried it deep." He ran his fingers through his hair, tugging in frustration. He stopped at the window, staring at the faint glow of city lights, searching for answers that weren't there. His reflection glared back at him, pale and strained. He whispered, "Sarah, what do I do now?" The name cracked as it left his lips, raw with grief. His stomach twisted as if every nerve in his body was unraveling. The silence in the room seemed to grow heavier, pressing against him like a storm waiting to break. David slumped back onto the bed, burying his face in his hands. His voice broke as he whispered, "Why now? Why after all these years?" He lifted his head slowly, eyes bloodshot, staring blankly at the phone lying on the blanket. His hands shook as he reached toward it, hesitation battling desperation. He muttered, "If they know, then what else do they know?" The fear gnawed at him like fire spreading through dry wood. He gripped the phone again, screen glow lighting his exhausted expression. His chest heaved, the silence of the room feeling louder than any sound. He whispered one last time, "Sarah, I'm sorry," before closing his eyes in torment, the words on the screen burning into his memory. David sat at his desk, the glow of his laptop flickering across his strained face. He typed the username into search engines, desperate for anything, but nothing surfaced. His jaw tightened as he whispered, "You can't be invisible." His eyes darted to a photo frame of Sarah on the desk, her smile haunting him with its silence. He pressed his palms against his temples, his mind spinning through possibilities. He muttered, "There has to be a trail, even the smallest breadcrumb, yet every link led nowhere, every click echoing futility." The silence of the room wrapped around him, broken only by the clicking of keys. He pushed back in his chair, chest rising sharply with each shallow breath. David's mind burned with suspicion, shadows of paranoia creeping in from the edges of thought. He whispered to himself, "Someone wants me to see this, and someone wants me broken." The next morning, David forced himself to meet with his childhood friend Michael at a small diner. Michael leaned back in the booth, eyes sharp with curiosity. David said, "Someone posted about Sarah. They know something." Michael frowned, his coffee untouched. He replied, "That's not possible, David. It's been years." David clenched his fist on the table, his voice low. "It wasn't random, Michael." The words were exact. Michael shifted uneasily, his jaw tight. The waitress passed by with steaming plates, but neither of them moved. David studied Michael's face, searching for reassurance, but found only unease. The clatter of dishes filled the silence between them, as the weight of the conversation settled like iron chains. David returned home restless, his thoughts circling like vultures. He opened his laptop again, diving into forums and hidden corners of the web. He muttered, "There has to be something. There always is." His screen reflected lines of code, anonymous threads, and whispers of darker truths. His breathing grew heavier as frustration tightened its grip. He whispered, "Show me something, damn it." He scrolled through endless pages, his eyes stinging, until a faint clue emerged, an archived comment linked to the same account. His pulse surged. He said, "There you are." The words felt like lightning in his veins. The page loaded slowly, agonizingly, as if resisting revelation. Shadows deepened around him, but David leaned closer, refusing to blink. David clicked the archive link and stared at the message. It was vague, but chilling. It mentioned a night, a place, and a voice that was silence. His stomach clenched as he muttered, "This is about Sarah." He leaned back, chair creaking, pulse hammering. He whispered, "They know details." His hands shook as he scrolled again, but the account vanished, already deleted. His throat tightened as dread spread like wildfire. He said, "They're watching me." The thought pressed down like a weight he couldn't escape. The glow of the laptop felt invasive, like an eye peering into him. He slammed it shut, the silence after the click deafening. David sat frozen, the closed laptop resting in front of him like a sealed coffin. His phone buzzed, the sudden vibration making him jolt. He grabbed it quickly, breath caught in his throat. A new message appeared on Reddit. "You're not looking in the right place." His hands shook as he whispered, "They're guiding me." His chest rose and fell with shallow gasps, the air thick with dread. He set the phone down slowly, as though it were a venomous snake. His voice cracked as he muttered, "Why me? Why now?" His reflection in the darkened laptop screen stared back, eyes wide and haunted. The silence in the room pressed closer, and for the first time, he felt truly hunted. David sat in Michael's living room, the walls lined with books and old photographs that spoke of history and memory. Michael leaned forward, his brow furrowed, his voice low as he said, "You need to stop digging, David." "This isn't safe." David clenched his jaw, his hand gripping the armrest as if anchoring himself. He whispered, "They know about Sarah. If I walk away now, I'll never know why." Michael's eyes darted nervously toward the window, as though expecting someone to be listening. He muttered, "You don't understand the people involved." David's pulse quickened, his voice sharp as he demanded, "Then explain it to me." Silence filled the room like smoke, and Michael finally looked at him, his expression heavy with secrets. Michael stood, pacing across the room with a restless energy, his voice low and trembling. He muttered, "Some things are buried for a reason." David rose to his feet, his body trembling with anger as he snapped, "Buried doesn't mean forgotten." Michael turned, his expression torn between fear and loyalty. His hands trembled as he said, "If you push this, they'll notice. They'll come after you." David's eyes burned with determination, his voice steady despite the dread gnawing at him. "Let them come. I'm done running from shadows." Michael pressed his lips together, his silence carrying more weight than words. The air between them felt charged like a storm about to break. Later that night, David sat alone in his car parked outside his apartment building. The rain streaked across the windshield, city lights refracting through droplets. He whispered, "They're watching me, I can feel it." His hand hovered over the ignition, yet he couldn't bring himself to move. A figure passed in the distance, blurred by rain, and his stomach dropped. His mind screamed with warnings, but his body stayed frozen. He muttered, "Sarah, guide me." The windshield wipers screeched across glass, cutting through the silence. His reflection in the rearview mirror looked hollow, his eyes filled with sleepless terror. The night seemed alive, whispering secrets he wasn't ready to hear. The next day, David confronted Claire, Sarah's old friend, outside her workplace. Claire froze when she saw him approach, her eyes widening with unease. David's voice shook as he said, "Claire, tell me what you know about that night." Claire's lips parted, but she hesitated, glancing around nervously. She whispered, "This isn't the place." David's hands clenched as he pressed, "Someone online knows things they shouldn't." "I need answers." Claire's eyes softened with guilt, her voice low. "You're stirring things better left untouched." The tension between them was heavy, her reluctance feeding his desperation. That evening, David sat across from Claire in a quiet cafe, steam rising from untouched mugs between them. Claire's hands trembled as she whispered, "There are people who didn't want Sarah's voice to be heard." David leaned closer, his voice urgent. "Who silenced her, Claire?" She looked away, tears brimming, her voice cracking as she said, "It wasn't an accident, David." His breath caught, his heart pounding so loudly he could barely hear. He muttered, "You've known all this time." Claire's silence confirmed what words could not. The cafe's quiet hum of life felt cruel, mocking the weight of the truth now settling between them. David sat across from Michael in the same diner, the morning sun spilling through the blinds, painting the room in fractured light. Michael avoided his gaze, stirring his coffee endlessly. David said, "You knew something all along, didn't you?" His tone was flat, but his eyes burned with accusation. Michael's hand trembled slightly as he muttered, "It wasn't my secret to tell." David leaned forward, his voice sharp. "It was Sarah's life, Michael, and now she's gone." Michael's face twisted, guilt etched into every line. He whispered, "You don't know the whole story, David." Silence pressed between them, heavy as David's chest rose sharply with each breath. Michael finally looked up, his eyes filled with torment. He whispered, "Sarah came to me the night before. She told me she was afraid of someone." David froze, his breath caught in his chest. He said, "Afraid of who?" Michael shook his head, his voice cracking. "She begged me not to say. She made me swear." David's face paled, the words cutting deep. "You let me think she was alone in this," he hissed. Michael's voice shook as he replied, "I thought I was protecting you." The truth hit David like a hammer, shattering what little trust remained. David pushed back from the table, his chair scraping loudly against the floor, drawing glances from nearby customers. His voice was low but seething. "You lied to me all these years, Michael." Michael stood quickly, reaching across the table as if to hold him back. He said, "Please, you don't understand what's at stake." David's fists clenched, his body shaking with rage. He whispered, "You betrayed Sarah, and you betrayed me." The air around them vibrated with tension, every word like a blade cutting deeper. Michael's lips parted, but no excuse came. The silence between them screamed louder than any words. That night, David stormed into his apartment, slamming the door behind him. His chest heaved as he paced the room, anger boiling into despair. He muttered, "Michael knew. He let her die with secrets." His eyes locked on the family photo resting on his shelf, Sarah's smile frozen in time. He whispered, "I failed you, Sarah." His fist slammed onto the table, rattling the glass frame. The silence of the apartment echoed with his fury and grief, the walls closing in like a cage. He dropped into a chair, burying his face in his hands, broken and raw. David's phone buzzed on the table, slicing through the silence. His hand shook as he picked it up, dread clawing at him. A new Reddit notification glowed on the screen. "You finally see the truth." His breath hitched and his stomach churned. He whispered, "They know everything." His reflection in the black glass of the phone screen looked hollow. A man unraveling. The room around him felt colder, the weight of betrayal and revelation crushing his chest. He muttered, "Michael was never on my side." The glow of the screen lit his pale face, a haunting reminder that the web of secrets had only begun to tighten. David sat in his darkened apartment, the curtains drawn tightly as if to block out the world. His breathing was uneven, every shadow on the wall stretching like an enemy. He whispered, "Michael lied, Claire hid, and now I am trapped." His phone sat silent on the table, yet it felt alive, watching him. He pressed his hands against his temples, his mind replaying Sarah's laugh, her voice, her silence. He muttered, "They wanted her silenced, and I let them win." His chest heaved, sweat dampening his shirt. The weight of betrayal pressed into him like stone. He slammed his fist against the table, voice breaking, "Someone will answer for this." Yet the silence that followed mocked him, reminding him he was alone in his descent. David walked into his father John's house unannounced, the heavy scent of old wood filling the air. John looked up from his armchair, surprised. John asked David, "What are you doing here this late?" David's eyes burned as he said, "You never told me Sarah was in danger." John's face hardened, his knuckles tightening on the armrest. He muttered, "Some truths don't save, they destroy." David stepped closer, voice rising. "You kept secrets while she begged for help." John's expression faltered, a flicker of guilt crossing his face. He whispered, "I thought I was protecting you both." David shook his head, rage and despair intertwining. "You protected no one," he spat. Silence hung thick, the air trembling with unspoken history. Later that night, David sat alone in his car outside a dimly lit bar. The neon sign flickered, buzzing faintly as rain pattered against the windshield. His hands gripped the steering wheel until his knuckles whitened. He muttered, "Everyone knew but me." His reflection in the glass looked foreign, hollow. He reached for the flask Sarah once gave him, tracing its engraved initials. His voice cracked, "You trusted me, and I failed." The rain blurred the city lights into bleeding colors, each drop echoing his fractured state. He shut his eyes tightly, wishing he could silence the memories clawing at him. When he opened them, the flask still gleamed in his hand, mocking him with her memory. David confronted Claire again, this time outside her apartment. His voice was hoarse as he demanded, "What else aren't you telling me?" Claire flinched, clutching her keys tightly. She whispered, "Sarah wasn't just afraid of someone. She was silenced by power." David's pulse raced, his eyes narrowing. "Who?" he demanded. Claire's voice cracked. "If I tell you, I'll end up like her." David's chest heaved, his desperation boiling. He said, "You owe her the truth." Claire's tears spilled as she whispered, "It was someone with influence, someone untouchable." The words struck him like thunder, his world cracking wider with every syllable. Back in his apartment, David sat at his desk, his laptop open, the glow casting a pale light on his face. A new Reddit message appeared. "You've come closer, but you're not ready for the truth." His stomach twisted, fury and dread battling inside. He whispered, "I'm ready, damn you." His fingers hovered over the keys, trembling before typing. "Tell me who." The cursor blinked, waiting, taunting. Minutes passed in silence. The reply never came. He slammed the laptop shut, the sound echoing like a gunshot. His chest rose and fell sharply, rage devouring him. He whispered into the silence, "You won't break me," though his voice wavered, betraying the fear buried beneath. David stormed into Michael's apartment, his eyes blazing with fury. Michael jumped from the couch, startled by the sudden intrusion. David's voice cracked with rage as he shouted, "You were supposed to be my brother, Michael." Michael's face drained of color, his hands trembling as he said, "I never wanted you to find out this way." David advanced closer, his chest rising sharply, his fists clenched. "You knew Sarah was silenced, and you said nothing," he spat. Michael's lips quivered, his body shaking under the weight of guilt. He whispered, "I was threatened too." David's breath hitched, his eyes narrowing. "You betrayed her, and you betrayed me," he growled. The silence after the words cut deeper than any blade. Michael's voice cracked as he whispered, "It was Judge Richard. He's the one Sarah feared." David froze, the name slicing through him like ice. His jaw tightened, and his voice trembled. "Judge Richard, the man everyone trusts?" Michael nodded slowly, his eyes hollow. "He holds power no one dares challenge." David's chest burned as rage collided with despair. He whispered, "Sarah tried to speak, and he silenced her." Michael's silence confirmed the truth. David staggered back, his hand gripping the wall for support. The weight of the revelation pressed into him, breaking something deep inside. He muttered, "I will end this." David drove through the city streets at night, headlights cutting through rain-slicked asphalt. His hands gripped the steering wheel with ferocity, his chest heaving. He muttered, "Judge Richard, you think you're untouchable." Each red light seemed to mock him, dragging time slower. His reflection in the windshield showed a man consumed, eyes burning with vengeance. The city blurred past in neon streaks, but his mind stayed locked on Sarah's voice, silenced forever. He whispered, "You will pay for her silence." The rain drummed harder, a storm echoing his turmoil, each drop beating like war drums in the night. David stood in the shadows outside the courthouse, the grand building looming above him. The cold night air bit at his skin as he stared at the doors. Judge Richard used daily. His whisper cut through the silence. "Your time is over." The marble pillars towered like guardians of corruption, their cold presence mocking him. David's hands trembled as he pulled Sarah's photo from his pocket, staring at her smile one last time. He whispered, "This is for you." His chest rose sharply, determination hardening his expression. The night felt heavy with fate, as if the world itself held its breath. Inside the empty courthouse hallway, Judge Richard walked briskly, his polished shoes echoing against marble floors. David stepped from the shadows, his voice cutting like steel. "You silenced Sarah." Judge Richard froze, his face stern and controlled. He said, "You don't know what you're risking." David advanced, eyes blazing. "I know enough. You destroyed her to protect yourself." Judge Richard smirked coldly, his voice venomous. "Truth is dangerous, David. Let it stay buried." David's chest heaved, his fists clenched. "Not anymore," he growled. The tension thickened, the air between them trembling with the weight of confrontation. The courthouse echoed with silence after the confrontation, the weight of unspoken truths clinging to the marble walls. Judge Richard stood unmoving, his eyes cold as steel. David's chest heaved, his voice steady yet trembling with fury as he said, "Sarah deserved better than this." Judge Richard smirked faintly, his arrogance unshaken. "The world doesn't care about the weak," he muttered. David's fists shook, his mind spiraling through grief and rage. He whispered, "The world will care tonight." The tension vibrated in the still air, the line between justice and destruction ready to snap. Shadows loomed across the floor as if waiting for blood to be spilled. Michael arrived breathless, his voice echoing in the empty hall as he shouted, "David, stop!" David turned sharply, his face twisted with rage and betrayal. "You don't get to tell me anything, Michael," he snapped. Michael's eyes glistened as he pleaded, "I made mistakes, but you don't want blood on your hands." Judge Richard sneered, his voice venomous. "He doesn't have the courage." David's jaw clenched as he took a step forward, his hand trembling. Michael stepped between them, tears forming. "If you do this, Sarah's memory dies with him," Michael whispered. David froze, his chest heaving, torn between vengeance and justice. David's vision blurred as he stared at Michael, his mind flashing to Sarah's smile and the silence that followed. His voice cracked as he said, "She begged for help, and all of you failed her." Michael's shoulders shook, his voice breaking. "Then honor her by living, not by destroying yourself." Judge Richard laughed coldly, his tone sharp as a blade. "Honor is for fools." David's fists trembled, his pulse roaring in his ears. He whispered, "No, honor is for Sarah." The words cut through the tension, a vow more than a declaration. The hallway seemed to hold its breath, waiting for his choice. David dropped his fist slowly, his voice raw but steady. "I won't give you the satisfaction, Richard," he said. Judge Richard's smirk faltered, his eyes narrowing with contempt. Michael exhaled, relief flooding his trembling frame. David stepped closer, his gaze unwavering. "The truth will bury you, not me." Judge Richard spat. "Truth means nothing without power." David's eyes hardened, his voice cutting like a knife. "Then I'll make sure the world sees it." The weight of Sarah's memory pressed into him, guiding him past the brink of vengeance into resolve. The hall trembled with the echo of his choice. Later that night, David stood alone outside Sarah's grave, the moonlight bathing the cemetery in pale silver. He whispered, "I chose you over vengeance." His chest rose sharply as tears slid silently down his cheeks. He placed the photo of Sarah gently against the headstone, his fingers trembling. "Your voice will not stay buried," he vowed. The wind rustled through the trees, carrying the weight of his words into the night. David's silhouette stood firm beneath the moon, haunted yet unbroken. His whisper lingered, a final promise. "They will remember your name, Sarah." The silence that followed was eternal, but no longer empty.